Let me begin by thanking the organizers for inviting me to this interesting webinar, which occupies the top of the radar position currently. It is difficult to make up one's mind with the media cacophony and widely divergent views of recognized experts in the domain of public health policy. Most of us come from a particular academic discipline such as economics, sociology, medicine, and so on. The problem is to analyze how the particular pandemic will affect us in the intermediate term requires a multidisciplinary expertise which most of us do not have. The famous story of Arjuna focusing on only the head of the bird may be educative to explain the need for concentration, but such approach in policy making is obviously going to be disastrous. It is especially so when we talk of education, because education is a long-term problem, not exactly problem, but it is essentially has to be thought of in generational terms, because education is something which goes on through our whole life. Pandemic is nothing new to humans. Every century or two, we had faced one and survived. Empirically, pandemics die in about 2 years. The last pandemic, known as the Spanish flu, occurred between February 1918 and April 1920, exactly 26 months. Since then, medical science and infrastructure have progressed manifold. Also, possibly for the first time, so many governments are putting so much of resources to discover a vaccine. Therefore, the optimism of Bill Gates that we would see the end of the pandemic by the end of 2021 may not be unrealistic, though it may be the best case scenario. In management, we always preach that hope for the best and plan for the worst. So what is the worst? That there will be no vaccine ever. This is not statistically improbable. Then what happens? At some point of time, hopefully not too far, we will develop herd immunity and it will stay with us, and possibly medical experts are not too sure, but with possibly lower virulence. We will learn to live with it just as we have for centuries with influenza, TB, or AIDS. We need to keep in mind this pandemic is a short-term phenomenon. It definitely disrupted the social models, including that of educational models, that we have been following for long, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a paradigm shift is either inevitable or desirable. This is especially true when we consider education, which by definition has to be thought of in the context of nation building in an increasingly knowledge-based global society. It is not too difficult to define education sector, but what is much more problematic is to define what is education. Now we intuitively understand what an educated person should be, but find it difficult to put it in words. But there is a broad agreement that education is optimization of certain inherent attributes as well as cultivation of some which can be acquired. It does contain the domain knowledge within its ambit, but that by itself is not complete education. It is clear from our everyday use of the term educated. We don't say she is educated in economics, but say she studied economics. This reveals that intuitively we realize that education is much more than domain knowledge. We expect educated persons to be civil, have interest in arts and culture, have understanding of societal issues, have the ability to express without being disagreeable, have an open mind to opposing points of view. Let us ask how much of these we learn directly from a classroom, physical or virtual. The honest answer is not much. But then where from we acquire these qualities and skill sets? To simplify, mostly from human interactions with batchmates, sports teams, attending adda in college canteen, local clubs, to mention in random. These interactions help us develop uh, the ability of engagement of with the society. These are these skills used to be called soft skills, but now more correctly life skills. These skill sets ultimately determine how a child or a grown-up will be successful in a cutthroat competitive world, not only professionally but also in family environment. And this is precisely the reason I feel that we need to go back to the physical environment of the classroom as soon as possible. And this is precisely the area where maximum damage to education, as we have defined earlier, can be caused by a prolonged pandemic situation. So far as the domain knowledge is concerned, online classes will probably be able to deliver the desired outcome. It is good to recall that for more than a decade, educationists are exploring whether multimedia tools can augment the understanding and overall internationalization by students in a physical classroom environment. And the jury is still out. The last meta study covering major studies globally concluded that there is mixed evidence with a pattern of mixed results. A later study by 3 international scholars on a large sample of middle school in Delhi concluded that technological intervention, if properly customized, can give a better outcome. Let's assume that the outcome is identical for both offline and online delivery systems. Or even, for argument's sake, online is a little better. Even then, For the reasons explained earlier, we will have to return to the physical system. But we can do something better if we can identify exactly how and in which area online is doing better during the pandemic. Those can be integrated with the traditional offline delivery system to achieve greater productivity in the education sector. The education sector has four stakeholders: students in all categories, teaching community, institutions, both public and private, and of course government. We have already discussed in detail the status of the students. Let us have a brief look on the teaching fraternity. In my opinion, they have done wonders. Within a short period of 8 to 12 weeks, they have mastered the technique of online teaching, developed the system and protocol of delivery, often under severe infrastructural constraints. Of course, there is enough scope of improvement, but that does not take away anything from their achievements. As to the institutions, there are wide variations as to the way they responded, but that was expected to begin with. Both the categories are under some kind of financial stress which needs to be addressed by the government, especially if the institutions are not allowed to open in near future. However, more proactive ones have been able to open a new revenue channel by developing online courses. This has been a growing area even in pre-pandemic time. The online education market is estimated to rise to $350 billion by 2025. It can reasonably be expected to get a further boost due to the pandemic. Therefore, the institutions will be able to not only recover their investments but also make reasonable rates of return. Now, the role of the government. So far, the government has rightly placed priority on minimizing threat to life over a short-term discontinuity in the learning curve. It now seems that it may go for calibrated reopening of educational institutions. Maybe from the middle of next calendar year, a hybrid form involving both offline and online delivery will be the preferred format. This intervening period should be used for codification of the strengths of an online format which should continue to be used even when pandemic is behind us. The open book examination is an example. Has the pandemic any beneficial impact? Strangely, it has. The enormity of digital divide stares at our face. It is not only about access to internet, but also about the parents' ability to handle a child during online instructions. In most poor families, parents are not literate enough to do this. So only providing a smartphone will not be enough. Pandemic has made us recognize of these issues. It is now necessary for us to act and act swiftly and decisively. Second, our teachers have become more tech savvy. This must continue to be promoted even after the pandemic is over. The new education policy focuses on greater use of technology and multidisciplinary approach. Paradoxically, pandemic may have triggered both. Thank you for your attention.